Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Rain Day Gaming. Today we'll be ranking and explaining every weapon in Apex Legends Season 5 from worst to best, so you know exactly what you need to pick up, where your favorite weapons stand, and how you're going to get those kills to improve your KDA and win more games. This is one of my most requested videos every season, and we go through each of the list of these weapons from light ammo to heavy ammo to shotguns to energy ammo to sniper rifles to care package weapons, everything you could think of, and we give them a score from 0 to 10. 0 being don't pick it up, you will die if you try to use this gun. 5 being hey, it's going to be up to you whether you succeed with it or not, gun's pretty average, and 10 being this gun will get you kills even if you are blindfolded. And we break down why they are in that state, from previous seasons buffs to this current season's buffs or nerfs, and overall give you an idea so when you jump into your Apex Legends match, you know the meta, you know what weapon to pick up, you can spend less time thinking about it and more time actually playing the game and getting dubs. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. If you do, let's kick off this video with a like and begin with the light ammo weapons and get right into the ranking. And of course, if you guys like more content like this, make sure to subscribe if you enjoy the video. All right, let's get into it. The P2020, the first weapon on the list. This is the perennial base weapon that you will find when you're quickly looting for something and you need anything else. This is the weapon that shows up when you absolutely do not want it to, and unfortunately in my rankings list gets a 3. It's not a good weapon. Pretty much anybody with armor will beat you if they have another gun, and especially if you don't have armor, because the time to kill is just very low, plus it is semi-automatic, meaning you have to click every single time you want to fire. The headshot bonus is decent for a weapon like this, although it is only 0.5%, 50% headshot bonus, meaning it'll be a 50% increase from 13 to 20, while as a lot of other weapons that we'll talk about have that double headshot bonus, meaning it's a complete 100% increase, making them a lot more lethal. This ranks at a 3 in general, but if you can find the hammer point rounds like we talked about last season, this weapon definitely becomes an 8. And honestly, this is the reason why. When you break down those shields and you need another sidearm, say you're working with an alternator and you're trying to fire somebody down, you break the shields, you want a quick switch, the P2020 is one of the most effective ways to use it. And I think if you're looking at a secondary weapon for someone who likes to get up close and play in these kind of close range fights, this becomes a totally different threat. Going from that double headshot bonus, it has no impact now because your headshots with this hit for 53. I'll take 50% all day if 53 is the number that I get at the end of it. And so it does make it a little bit of a threat, but only if that condition is fulfilled. Hey, all my Code Geass fans, what's up? All right, let's move on to the RE45, which got some recent buffs in Season 5. Let's talk about what they were. The RE5 is now one of the gold weapons as well, and it's got an increase from damage from 11 per bullet to 12, making it that much more lethal every time it goes into your opponent's chest or head. They've also reduced the reload time from 1.74 to 1.5 base and 2.212 to 1.95 empty, meaning that you will have a lesser reload time when you finish shooting with this weapon, making it a better weapon overall. You get your shots back a little faster, be able to, boom, go back into the fray. Now, this is one of those weapons that I was really excited for at the start of Season 5, but unfortunately, guys, it doesn't break too high into the list because at the end of the day, this is just not as good as its counterparts in the light ammo and often in the heavy ammo or energy ammo categories. Although, let's talk about this gun by itself. It has become more lethal. It has become something that in one clip usually couldn't take off the body, shield, and health of a player in this mode, like of a training dummy. It now can do that really easily, especially with an extended mag. And so I feel that the RE45 is definitely a sleeper. You will catch some people off guard using this weapon. It's just not going to be the choice to pick up if you see any of the other options we'll get into. And for that reason, it gets a 6. Pretty good, a little better than average, but I do think that unfortunately, the other guns still reign supreme. And that leads into a bigger conversation we'll get into in just a moment. Now let's talk about the alternator. Excuse me, picked up the G7. Let's talk about the alternator. This also got some buffs in Apex Legends Season 5, and the buff was to the mag size. Now, if we take this extended clip off, which you can obviously find all your favorite attachments, see what it's like to play with these things in the training ground, which actually is a very good thing for people. Also, I'm going to grab a backpack so I can carry a bunch of ammo, like I've heard a lot of people say in my previous videos. This one actually got an extended magazine size, meaning it went from 16 to 19 at base. What this means is you just got more damage in the potential magazine to unload onto someone, and it also means you just get a little wiggle room. Notice how the indicators on the right side slowly fill in. You see that? How they start to fill in, giving you a visual indicator on when you're about to run out of ammo. Pretty neat. Not a lot of people notice that about this weapon. The hip fire is very decent on this weapon as well. One of my favorite things about it. And essentially the way you can look at this weapon is something that's versatile. Unlike the R99, which is very up close, unlike the R301, which is mid-range to long range, and you suffer a little bit up close, the alternator can kind of do it from all ranges, being pretty decent from range, peppering out somebody from a distance, especially you have a little scope on there. See, pretty effective, but it can also be nice at a mid-range, even if you're hip firing, and it can also be great hip firing up close, meaning that you'll be able to still win these duels, maybe hit a headshot or so, but it suffers from some of the same things the RE45 does, which is a 50% headshot bonus increase and not that double headshot bonus increase that really sets it apart. And remember, with an extended mag, it gets to 27 ammo, so you'll have even more leeway. Expect to win fights against an R99 when you use this, and you kind of just can miss a little bit more than them and still somehow end up with pretty much depleting their health. Let's move on, however, to the R301, which is why I say it's the issue and why this weapon still reigns supreme over the alternator, which gets a 7 in my book, is that, look at this, 14 damage per bullet, which is actually less than the alternator, which gives you 15. But the big key here, 28. Headshot damage still king on this bad boy, which means that if you hit a few of them, your time to kill goes way down and people really get panicked. It's a fantastic mid to long range weapon that can serve with a 3x scope to make life a lot easier, especially for someone who's trying to approach you. And you can even use it as far as this to really, I think, kind of pepper and have an impact on opponents who are running away. The recoil is not as good as Season 2 or Season 1 when this thing was absolutely a laser, but it ultimately makes this weapon still very viable and very flexible, and that's one of the reasons why I really like it. However, comparing it to something like an SMG, you do have to remember that SMGs get a little bit less of a movement speed penalty when they're strafing. I believe it's about 30% movement speed reduction, whereas when you look at these assault rifles, it is actually a 50% movement speed decrease when you are moving. So this is definitely not the best up close when you're trying to like aim down sights, but if you do want to find that kind of support role, somebody like a Pathfinder takes high ground, an R301, it's a great choice because you can put yourself in a good position, help your teammates kind of ward off any enemies who are making an aggressive push, trying to rotate into your zone, and also really just be a very reliable weapon that doesn't have a lot of crazy things to it. It gets an 8 for me in my book due to the fact that the high headshot bonus, and as well as the fact that it's so flexible, so versatile, and still has a higher magazine than the alternator. Now, this is really the creme de la creme. You talk about SMGs, you talk about if I rule the world. It's always been the R99, and I don't know if it won't be. This weapon shoots about as fast as you can shoot, and although the TTK is technically a bit slower than some of the other weapons, considering that the bullets do not actually hit as hard, only 11 per bullet, last season it got a nice little buff to its magazine base capacity, which allowed it to have actually 20 damage in the base mag instead of 18. What they did was they reduced the damage of each weapon, each bullet by 1, so going from 12 to 11, but ultimately you still get an extra 22 damage, I believe, in this magazine, and the weapon kind of maintained itself at being, you know, the king of the crop. The only issues with this is that when you're actually fighting, if you're not very good, you can easily miss a lot of these shots, and all of a sudden you've emptied your entire magazine, you have nowhere else to go, you have nothing else except to do reload, and you've kind of committed to a fight where if you don't have that great aim, you could get punished in that severe reload. However, we all know this is still probably the king of the business there, and so we're going to leave that at a 9. Definitely pick it up. If you see an R99, get good at it, pick it up, you will be winning a ton of fights. It will make your time in Apex Legends a lot easier. Now, let's move on to the G7 Scout. This is a weapon that has been very, very good, and all my fans, all my viewers, people who have been watching me don't necessarily see me playing with the G7 Scout a lot lately, and part of the reason is that it's just been a weapon that's kind of been really good for a long time and then steadily slightly nerfed to where it's not really exciting anymore. It's not really OP. It's not underpowered. It's just a dang good weapon and gives you a lot of flexibility from long range. However, one of the things that you'll notice is that if you're used to playing it from maybe Season 3, there's going to be a significant decrease in how fast it fires. You're going to have to kind of weigh your shots a little bit more, and also when you're trying to hit shots from range, things that are moving, you're just going to have to be a little bit slower, a little bit more casual, and what it means is that you just can't, you know, instantly delete somebody as easily when they're trying to rush around. This weapon was used at high level for really poking and preventing people from kind of utilizing great positions or getting to great positions and trying to kind of just say, all right, 1, 2, 3, we all jump out with scouts, we shoot one guy, and boom, a couple of headshots, he's dead. And now their team, after just trying to get to a new position, is pretty much over with. I wouldn't say that this is the worst weapon. I just would say that this is not the best weapon anymore, and you may see people utilizing different forms of snipers, especially with the Evo Shield meta, and just really sticking to things like Peacekeeper's Wingman. We'll get into that a little bit. Peacekeeper, a little different. But I'm going to give this one an 8. Very, very solid. Not something you're going to be mad about picking up at all. Still a great weapon, the G7 Scout, and something that is a very strong choice, especially if you can hit your shots. Now we're going to move on to the heavy ammo categories and talk about one of the most illustrious weapons in the history of the game. One of the best to ever do it. We're talking MJ status here. It's the Wingman. And guess what? It has gotten an even stronger buff in Apex Legends Season 5. Now, while this weapon has always been the best from Season 1 to Season 2, the reason you can just denote it down to is that time to kill is one of the biggest factors of any great weapon in any type of shooter. If something kills you faster than another weapon, people are going to try to use it and abuse it until that doesn't happen anymore. And unfortunately, headshots and just strong, solid, consistent damage for a Wingman is always going to be valuable. They've changed the base starting mag, to 5, and now with the extended mag as well, they've also capped it so that you only get 1 per level of extended mag. So you get a total of 8 with a level 3. I mean, that's pretty good, and 90 headshots are still pretty good as well. I mean, it means that I could basically 3-shot somebody, 4-shot somebody pretty easily, and the difference is I can do this from across the map pretty well as also, just because I have a lot of flexibility. But here's where it gets really, really amazing. Skull Piercers are back, meaning that this was the kind of original hop up for the Wingman and for the longbow, and it's been reintroduced in Season 5. And what it does is it increases that headshot damage. So while you're fighting, you get those extra little maybe lucky headshots, and things completely take a change in your direction if they weren't going that way already. They're just so deadly. It's so efficient. You use 8 bullets and you can take down somebody's entire health, where you look at an alternator, it's using 11 bullets just to get in the game, okay, before you run out. I think this is really why the Wingman has stayed so valuable. But let me give you another secret before we move on. Notice when you're looking at all of these other weapons, when I move and strafe, a Wingman actually loses no movement speed penalty, very little movement speed penalty, almost negligible when you're actually strafing, and that is what makes this weapon so valuable. It's one of the best weapons to actually dish and deliver damage while also maintaining movement, which is one of the biggest keys in Apex Legends, being able to move well and impact the play of your opponent by making them miss their shots. Obviously, the Wingman's still on top. 9 for the Wingman in Season 5. Pick it up if you can. Now, the Spitfire, one of the weapons I said was very, very underrated in Apex Legends Season 4, I agree is still underrated. But let's talk about the bigger theme of this season, which is that everything has been kind of smushed together. This Season 4 meta had kind of set a couple of things apart from the group, especially as things went on. The Havoc started to become extremely valuable. People started picking up the Charge Rifle a little bit more. The Wingman, the Peacekeeper, these were still solid weapons. And things like the Alternator, RE45, I mean, jokes, really. No one even touched them. Now, those weapons and a lot of those weapons have kind of been smushed together. They're still the same rankings, but unfortunately, there's no new King of the Hill, but it's now like if you pick up this weapon, you kind of have a decent chance, and you pick up this weapon, you have a decent chance. They've almost essentially buffed the worst weapons to make them viable, even though still keeping the same level of hierarchy between all of the weapons, if that makes sense to you guys. And the Spitfire has kind of remained, and unfortunately, because it's gotten no buffs, it's almost kind of fallen off. I give this weapon right now a 6, because it's got one of the highest magazines, I think the highest magazine in the game, except for maybe a Devotion, but again, we all know that weapon's just a little crazy. You can do a ton of damage, and the headshot bonus multiplier is 2 times, or 100%, which means that those long-range shots, even if you're missing, you're not a great player, you're going to get some value off of this. I'd say it does help you a little bit. It's a better weapon than a worse weapon, and so, yeah, using a Spitfire, even if you miss most of your shots and you're just like that bad third party, you know, that bad third player on a team who can't hit anything, you're going to be able to provide value for your teammates just by hitting a few lucky headshots and, you know, kind of aiming at the body. Shoutouts to those third teammates. We need you. We love you. I might be one of those every now and then, but that gets a 6 from me. Pretty decent, not bad, but there are better choices in this season. Let's talk about the Prowler, which is still one of the best weapons, I think, for those who are trying to be on the come up, trying to say, hey, I want to do something a little different. The Burst, it's slept on, for sure. I love the Prowler. It's a good hip fire. It's fast. You can tell it's an SMG, and you don't get as much of a movement speed penalty when you're trying to aim down sights versus strafe. It's got crazy good headshot damage as well, especially considering you're doing a 5 burst there. But it's just one of those weapons that I think really gets better better when you have the hop up for it. And just like the P2020 in Mozambique, it's hard to say a weapon is always going to be great when you can't really guarantee finding that hop up. The Wingman still pretty much does what it does, but better without the hop up. But having an alternator with a select fire, it's just a totally different experience. And if you can't find that in an extended mag, this weapon kind of stays in the middle of the pack. Unfortunately, for those who want the Prowler to take the top spot, it's not going to happen. It is still going to get a 7 from me. A very good weapon. It will make fights a little easier for you, and the select fire will probably boost it up to an 8 if you grab that as well. Let me know what you guys think about that one in the comment section below. Now, here's the one where I wanted to be a little bit, I think a little bit crazy. Not a little crazy, but I wanted to give you guys a thought process as to where I'm coming from. The Hemlock, in my opinion, is the most underrated weapon in the game. I think this is the most underrated weapon in the game because when you look at not only the burst potential of this, you look at the duel ability of this, meaning that you can duel someone with this, 2 shots, you can kill them right away. Like, it's nuts. And yes, you can miss, but the wiggle room, the firing speed, the hip fire, the value of this weapon in so many different situations, to me, has put it in a place where people have not really given it the respect it deserves. Now, everyone's talked about the Hemlock single fire. You know, hey, it's been good for a while, but there was a nerf that they applied to it, I believe, in the beginning of season... It might have been season 3, and I believe it got reverted in season 4, which makes this weapon that much more valuable right now. I mean, look at that, baby. That's just straight up single fire, semi-automatic destruction right there. And guess what? It's still just as effective from this range. That's one of the things that I love about it. You'll win so many duels with this weapon. People do not know how to fight against this weapon. And you can, with a 2 to 4 times scope, you could basically behave as if this is a close range game. You want to run into somebody, you want to hip fire, you don't even want to look at them. Boom, see ya, bam, right there. And if you want to just say, hey, let's make this like a sniping fest, let's do it. Single fire, boom. It's got the versatility to match. It's, I think, one of the most unexpected weapons. People don't necessarily get used to fighting against. The TTK is weird for them. And so in my opinion, this gets a 9. I say yes, you could pick this up. You could pick up an R99. You could still do the same amount of damage. You can get the same amount of kills. If you don't believe me, just try it. Just watch. I believe this is one of those weapons that people really are sleeping on in Season 5. And will continue to sleep on until it just becomes meta. That's basically what it will. That's basically what's going to happen. Now, let's talk about a weapon that has already been meta for a while, the Flatline. This weapon got a lot of nice buffs heading into Season 3 with the Anvil Receiver introduction, and continuing to be valuable and I think really a strong choice. One of the things that makes this weapon so good is that you do have the double headshot bonus, and that means that you're going to essentially have one of the hardest hitting weapons in the game when you're able to use it to really grab those headshots. And that just means that people are going to be a little bit unexpected. You're going to be able to make more out of your bullets, out of your economy resources. Say you only have 20, bullets left. You could even do a single fire as well, although I don't recommend it. It's not as good as the Hemlock in my opinion, but it's got some value there. It really does. It has some value to it. So don't be afraid to try and use it. It's got great versatility. And one of the things that people like about it, I think, as well, is the hip fire. Getting up close and hip firing, because you have that AR and it's going to essentially cut your strafe time down. Hip firing is pretty decent on the Flatline, and you can get a lot of damage off unexpectedly and still maintain that strafe mobility that you would want to be maintaining in a close-up duel gunfight. So those are the heavy ammo weapons. Unfortunately, the Wingman stays at the creme de la creme, as well as the Hemlock, and the Flatline rakes in at a number 8. Let's move it along to some very interesting conversations around snipers you are not going to want to miss, because I think snipers have really put themselves in the most interesting position in the meta, and I'll tell you why, especially finishing off with the Sentinel. Now, the Triple Take is going to be one of the weapons that I unfortunately give one of the worst ratings to in all of this video. And I just think that the Triple Take is one of those weapons that, yes, you could see it does a ton of damage if you hit a headshot. If it's right in alignment, you're up close, you can even hit some fantastic shotgun aspects here, because it has that 3-bullet spread that allows you to, as you can see right there, essentially have that spread go from, hey, I'm a wide clip, I'm just running in, I'm like fighting, I need a little bit more wiggle room on my shots, to, hey, I'm lining up my sniping shot, boom, 138, I've just deleted this guy. But at the end of the day, I just don't feel like it is reliable enough for several reasons. I'll tell you one. One of the big reasons, I think, is just the ability to land these shots and gain the instant impact. A lot of times you'll find a Triple Take and you'll hit, maybe one of your shots. You'll get that 46, that unlucky kind of like, that was really not worth shooting right there, and now they know where I am, or I just haven't gotten enough value from that shot. And if you're up close, you don't want to use a sniper. You want to use a shotgun. You want to use an R99. You want to use anything else because it's just not as effective. Early game is about where this weapon, I think, becomes the most valuable when people have lower amounts of shields and you have a really easy way to shoot them when they don't have cover, when they're not in a building, when they're not head glitching you, when they're just out in the open running trying to find loot. That's where this weapon really, I think, excels. But because of the way the other snipers have gotten value, I'm going to give this one a 5. Yes, the triple take gets a 5. It's one of the worst scores I've given so far. I honestly believe the triple take is just one of those weapons that, yeah, if you feel like you're really good with it, you can make the jump. You can be the best player in the game with a triple take, but it's going to be up to you. It's not going to be up to this weapon. This weapon does not make your life any easier from a sniper's perspective, especially when comparing it to the others. Now, let's move on to the longbow, which also got one of the best adjustments in Season 5, which is the addition to the Skull Piercer. Now, without the Skull Piercer, you see the longbow is going to hit for 110 damage, and when you add that Skull Piercer on, let's go to an already healthy dummy, is going to hit for 138. So you can see the scaling on this is very different. What's always set the longbow apart, in my opinion, is the ability to fire a little faster and just kind of have that more pressurized kind of fight style, which means that people know they're under fire and that fire's not stopping. You also look at the extended mag and the ability for the longbow to take advantage of it better than any other weapon in the sniper ammo category. 12 shots. I mean, that is big time damage. That's over 1,200, 1,300 damage in the clip if you're able to hit headshots on this bad boy and just keep on firing. Excuse me, magazine. It's also okay from like a, you know, close range. Wow, never mind. I don't really use this a lot close range as well. I was gonna say, you know, if you're up close and trying to barrel stuff somebody, it can provide some value, but it is not an easy way to do it. It is not easy by any means necessary. If you do crouch though, maybe you get a little bit of more, more accuracy there. If you can notice, there's a little bit more, but yeah, you want to be aiming down sights on this bad boy. Definitely do not try that at home. But yeah, with the Skull Piercer, it becomes probably the second best sniper in the game for me, and that is why it gets an 8. The charge rifle is an interesting weapon, and when you look at the economy of snipers, they've had this interesting kind of shift where snipers weren't really valuable, but the charge rifle really started to take its place in pro play, and I believe in the last elements of Season 4 in a unique way where people were using it more and more. And I started to think to myself, why has the charge rifle become more meta? And I started talking with a professional, and he was talking about how the charge rifle is just such easy guaranteed damage for building up your Evo shields. Now, when you look at the Evo shield and the meta that has evolved around it, they've really reverted shields to be Evo shield as the best shield in the game. Gold shields now, they heal a little bit more, but it's still the same amount of damage as purple. It's still the same healing speed. Evo shield is the only way to get an actual health advantage over your opponent by having more health than they do at the start of a fight, and that's why they're very, very meta. The charge rifle, from somebody running across the distance, being one of the only hit scan weapons used in the game, considering the Havoc single fire nobody really uses, is going to be easy Evo shield charge, especially if you're just hiding in a building, you're chilling here, you're in your spot late game, you see somebody rotating across the map, boom, 90 damage, boom, hit scan firing. Where are they going? Easy shots. I'm not trying to line it up, not trying to space it out with my longbow, trying to just, you know, hey, they're running there, they're, you know, they're slide jumping. It's just keeping a track over it, and that's one of the reasons why I think that weapon is valuable and why snipers in general are valuable. But the longbow getting more damage to build up that Evo shield faster, I think has actually put itself in the mix a little bit more than the charge rifle. And I also think that when you look at it, the Sentinel has now become a very big conversation as far as Evo shields. Now, why is that? Because the Sentinel got a bit of a secret change in Apex Legends, which I'm sure isn't so secret anymore, whereas it used to take shield batteries, a very valuable resource that would get 100% of your shields in 5 seconds, and now it takes shield cells, which only restores, let's say in the time of 6 seconds, 50% of your shields at max level. Instead of using those high-end resources to charge this bad boy up, you end up getting some really easy to come by resources to do the same job, and it makes the world of difference for the Sentinel, especially when you look at charging the Evo. Now, a normal shot of the Sentinel onto a shield will be 70 damage, 5 damage away from getting your Evo up. But if you end up charging it, what's great about this is that the charging damage depletes all shields that the person is using. So say these training dummies, they have purple shields, so that's 100 health. I'm now going to end up getting, let me just let me just get a little extra damage on this guy really quickly, so that let's just do it right here. So I'm going to end up getting, as you guys can see right now, because I gotta take this guy out. I didn't set this up well. You're gonna see right now, because the disruptors are on, this guy's got a fresh shield. I got 100 damage, although my bullets only hit for 70. It's because I've broken that shield, and that counts towards your Evo shield. So people who do find the ability to have shield cells running around, grab a Sentinel, any shot on somebody is going to be insignificant amount of easy damage to charge up your Evo shield, especially if you're hitting headshots. It's going to just be so simple, especially when you find yourself just being able to like look at a full team of rotating players. And that's why I think the Sentinel has really gotten itself into a top sniper conversation for Season 5. Let me know what you guys think about that. I just think it's a lot more easier now to fill that Evo shield, and it's going to make a world of difference when you are playing with snipers. So that one is going to mean that the charge rifle gets a 7, the longbow gets an 8, as well as the Sentinel, and the triple take gets a 5. Now let's move into the, well, I think I had a little too much sniper ammo. What do you guys think? The Sentinel, actually, let's move on to the L-Star, which gets a very interesting rep in Apex Legends. I tried to make a push for this weapon to be considered one of the more underrated weapons in Apex Legends last season, and I still think that it is. But again, with all of the buffs to the other weapons in the light ammo category, some of the snipers as well, the wingman, the longbow, I think you'll find the L-Star kind of stays right in the middle of the pack. It's still one of the fastest firing weapons, and it's got great velocity as far as, you know, when you're trying to fight from maybe a farther distance, you'd be surprised how good this is at kind of just burning people's shields down pretty quickly. Now, it's not the most reliable weapon from range. You're going to find more successful, you know, attempts at really controlling this recoil by either the best player in the world or by a different weapon. But at the end of the day, this thing hurts. And if you recognize where to use this and how to use this, you can really get a lot of value out of it and surprise people with the insane amount of burst. It's got a slower, you know, kind of strafe style when you do ADS, so you have to be aware of that. And it's really doesn't make sense to hip fire from this type of range. But up close, this weapon is going to definitely have an impact, and the headshot bonus damage is 2 times, which makes it really lethal if you're able to hit your shots. That's really the biggest key to this. The extreme speed of what you're firing, and the fact that it is really lethal if you hit your headshots, and there's usually a lot of energy ammo around. So for that, I'm going to give it a 7, but it pales in comparison to this weapon right here, the Havoc. You've heard it, you've talked about it. The Havoc is one of the most deadliest weapons in Apex Legends, and it has been for a while. Season 4 saw that. Season 5 adjusted the recoil, but it doesn't really feel like it's harder to control. I think that the Havoc is a really hard conversation to have for a lot of people, because some people find the recoil very easy to control, and some people like me before Apex have never played a game that has gun recoil, so they don't find it easy to control, right? It's just not a thing that they're used to. They don't come from a traditional shooter background. They don't come from Counter-Strike, and so recoil does make a big difference for them, especially when it's, you know, dramatic in that sense. You have to actually aim down while you're shooting it. You have to counter the recoil by consistently aiming down to keep it in one place. And that is not something that everyone's familiar with. So the Havoc isn't going to be utilized by everyone like this. But when you know, you know. And that is, I think, the biggest problem in this regard. The Havoc just deletes people from afar. You can use a 2-time scope, no problem. I think that's one of the biggest conversations, that the R99 is great, sure, but you could never do something like I just did with the Havoc with the R99 from this range. You couldn't, like, delete someone like that, because it's 32 ammo in the magazine, which means you've got a lot of wiggle room to miss. It's high damage per bullet at 18. It's high headshot damage with 2 times bonus. It's basically got everything that you would want. The only thing that it does have, which is a little bit more of a severe penalty, is it does have not very good, you know, in terms of the AR, aim down sight strafing, which you will find with a lot of different weapons. But aside from that, this bad boy is an absolute killer. You're going to see it in high-level play until it's changed. And honestly, I'm not necessarily needing it to be changed. I like the way that they're patching this right now. They're just actually adding better weapons, making different weapons that aren't played as much more viable. And for me, that's what I'd like to see here. The Havoc, though, a 9. Definitely play it. This will make your gaming experience a lot easier in Apex Legends. Let's just say that. All right, guys, we're almost at the end of this one, but we've got a few more important ones to go through. The first one is the Mozambique. Now, the Mozambique, one of the only weapons that receives absolutely no movement strafing excuse me, what am I, it's early, guys, sorry about that, but it receives no movement delay when you aim down sights. You're going to move the exact same speed, 100% movement, whether you're aiming down sights or not, which is why things could be difficult when you're aiming. You may think that you're going to slow down naturally when you hit that, but you're not. So, you know, what is interesting though is that the spread of the Mozambique actually changes when you aim down sights. So you see how that was my first shot? That's my second shot. So the spread actually becomes a little closer. So one of the ways people have kind of said it is to line it up like this and kind of go right away. So you can kind of almost just aim down sights quickly, but kind of line it up beforehand with the hip fire side. And you can also get up close with people as well. It's a very fast firing shotgun, and it's really close to being amazing. The only issue is that it has 3 weapons, and I think three shots. And I think when you look at Apex Legends, you need some weapons to be at the bottom. You can't have every weapon be so insane. I think Season 5 has kind of got the perfect balance of weapons that are pretty good and weapons that aren't needing to be insane. And I think the Mozambique fills the perfect role. It's about a 3 without this hammer point rounds, but because it takes that same level, that same hop up that the P2020 does, when you do find somebody with no shield, you allow yourself to have a one-shot kill if you do use it, and that to me brings it up to an 8. Very good sidearm, not a main weapon whatsoever, but again, if you want to use it as a sidearm, you can get some value in that. Now let's talk about the EVA 8, which has really surprised me. If you've been watching the pro level scene, you've seen a lot more EVA 8s in play, and one of the reasons is that it's such a reliable, such a consistent applicator of pressure. Pressure is important in Apex Legends, in Battle Royales, in competitive sports, because when you have pressure onto an opponent, it means that they're off their game. They have to make adjustments, you don't. So when you're applying pressure like this, they have to do something. They don't have time to just turn around and suddenly start firing at you. Their health is gone. You do this for another half second, they're dead. They've got to play defensive, they got to do something, and usually, excuse me, it ends up in them panicking. And so what I'd like to say is that the EVA 8 is one of those underrated weapons, in my opinion, and actually serves as an 8 in the shotgun category. Now, the double tap hop up, I kind of waited to use because this also goes with the G7 Scout, but it goes really nicely with the EVA 8, giving you that kind of double tap and burst to really, if you can line it up and keep it connected, you will find some insane damage on that bad boy. And that's where the G7 Scout also benefits from. A lot of damage if you can kind of just keep it lined up and burst your opponents, especially if they end up being headshots. Both of these weapons, though, I think are maybe less reliable versions of maybe their perfect counterparts, which would be something like a Peacekeeper, or maybe be something like a longbow, right, for the G7, or maybe even when you look at it, something that could fill the role of a G7 would be maybe a Hemlock. I think that ultimately you can find a lot of value with them, but I would say that there are better choices, but these are really, really strong additions, and I am a fan. Some people do not like this double tap. They'd rather have the single tap, more control. Beware if you do use it, you will just essentially need a lot of shotgun ammo. You'll run out pretty quickly because the double tap does eat through ammo and light ammo as well, like a freaking man who hasn't eaten for a week. He's gonna tear through whatever you put in front of him. That's exactly what the double tap does. Now to move on to what has been the most interesting change, the Mastiff. The Mastiff came out of the care package. It used to be a legendary weapon, and now it is a legendary weapon that's not in the care package. I mean, let's be honest. This weapon is insane. It's very, very good. It is consistently being used at high level play in scrims. It's being used by pros. It's being used by casual players. One of the things I love about it too is that when you're looking for that insta down, somebody's downed, what you can get with this is over 100 damage in one shot, and there's no other shotgun in the game besides the PK that could do that right now. And that means that when someone's down, you just boom, sneak up to them, insta down, so efficient, and now you move on to finishing off their teammates. And that's one of the things I really love about it. The other thing though is that the Mastiff, yes, will give you those 16s, but it'll also give you those 78s, it'll give you those 65s, it'll give you that for range, and guess what? It's got 6 shotgun shells in the chamber. I mean, it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, wow, this weapon has a lot going for it. I can shoot 6 times. I don't even have to be close. I can miss a lot, and I can still finish somebody off without having to reload and be vulnerable. That makes this weapon so good. It is a top tier weapon right now. If you're not using the Mastiff, you're missing out. I've even seen some people say the Mastiff stinks. You've got it wrong. The Mastiff doesn't stink. This is going to be a good weapon until it gets changed, if it does. So it's a 9. Pick it up for sure. The final weapons now as we get into it, which is hopefully you guys have been enjoying this, learning a lot, learning about the meta. And again, let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. I'd be happy to answer them or give my opinions on things. The care package weapons. Care package now goes with the Kraber, it goes with the Devotion, and it goes with the Peacekeeper. The Kraber, in my opinion, is still the best weapon in the game. I believe the Kraber is a 10, and for these reasons, I will give to you. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. First of all, it's a one-shot kill no matter what if you hit a headshot, so it puts complete control in your hands. Not as easily done as it is said, but it's still fantastic. A body shot as well is 145, and it will take out anybody in the game from being able to be aggressive. So essentially, you have a team pushing you, boom, Kraber shot, they can't fight, they can't push. Nobody's going to push you with 55 health, right? No one's going to do that. They have to back off, and they may think you're going to push them. The impact this can have in a game is game-changing. It can make a 1v3 into a 1v2 instantly, and with a Kraber in your hand, a 1v2 ain't so bad. This is one of those weapons that can completely change the game and give you an edge over people that they'll never be able to get over you, and that's why, to me, it is the best weapon in the game. The Devotion is also up there, and again, I said the biggest magazine in the game goes to Spitfire or the Devotion. It is the Spitfire, I believe. The Devotion here at base gives you 54 damage in the magazine, but look at the absolute shred this monster does to its opponents. Now, this is a 17 damage and 34 damage headshot, which is not too far away from things like the Havoc, which actually has an 18 damage shot and a 36 headshot. But where this thing absolutely goes crazy is the fact that the startup time is nil. It's like essentially got a turbocharger on it already, and the clip size, the magazine size, is absolutely ridiculous. You can almost take down an entire team with just one magazine if you do it well. And that is what makes this weapon so good. You've got essentially 3 full magazines on it when you find it in a care package. And essentially, I would say take this over anything. Take this over any assault rifle, SMG that you have. There's almost no way you would lose a duel if you hit your shots with it. That's all I have to say. Just start firing first. That's what I would do. And then finally, our beloved Peacekeeper. It is now in the care package weapons, and as a result, it has gotten buffed to be, I think, considered a weapon of that nature, whereas it actually kind of always was. The PK is giving you a little bit more wiggle room on shots like this from afar. It's also giving you a little bit of a reduced rechamber time, so you're going to get about 30% or 25% off of that, what it used to be from 1.2 to 0.9. They've reduced the reload times at well from 2.65, 2.45 to 3.65, 3.35, so it's going to reload faster, you're going to rechamber faster. It's overall just a better shotgun than it was, and it was the best shotgun in the game outside of the Mastiff before it got its changes. It's also kind of increased its pellet size to improve the projectiles at close range, so you shouldn't be hitting those 12s the way that you kind of used to with the PK. You should really be getting max damage, and that's kind of why they, I think, decided to mix up the meta here. Overall, it's time for summaries as the PK also receives a 10. Let's get into it. If you've watched this far, here are my worst weapons in Season 5. It would be the Triple Take, the Spitfire, the Mozambique, the P2020, and the RE45. And the best weapons right now are the Havoc, the Mastiff, the Wingman, the R99, and yes, the Hemlock. If you use those weapons, you will have a much easier time getting kills. I almost guarantee it. Go ahead, pick them up. Try to use them in your games today. I guarantee you will have more success than the weapons you've been using because they are just that efficient at being valuable in this game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Leave any comments down below. Questions, thoughts, disagreements, agreements, and of course, like the video. Subscribe to stay more for Rain Day Gaming, and stay tuned. I'm going to do a lot more ranking and explaining videos. You know I got my Legends one coming up as well, so stay tuned for that for Season 5 in the near future. As always, never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you all next time.